Friday, September the 23rd. This is a special call meeting of the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District Board of Commissioners, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry for the interruption, but we may have a camera problem. We're not seeing the picture up here.
Why don't you go ahead and work on it? I mean, do you want to go ahead and...
Well, I was just going to ask if you don't mind.
Please do.
Checking to see which cord that is. It's this one. You see where...
It's this one. It says it's recording.
Unplug it and plug it back in.
Coots and videos.
See if we can detect the camera.
It was, that was the best. I played.
Oh, good. Me
You
too.
guys see it recording?
Oh, I mean, the best one of those
Oh, okay.
events that I've done.
Because we had so many running.
Yeah, exactly.
I played.
I played.
All right on our team.
Did the
Oh,
beach of the
wow.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. And Jan Hartley was just a hoot.
I guess we're on.
And then Claudia.
It says it's recording, and the camera, the light is on, so they redid some of the technology in here yesterday or the day before.
Well, we were just talking about the fact that we are at least audio recording. So if it doesn't go through, then they can't say we're trying to hide things from them. All right, would you do a roll call, please, Commissioner Surratt?
Did we do the pledge?
Yes, we did the pledge.
Chairwoman Childers.
Here.
Vice Chair Dyer.
Here.
Secretary Surratt. Here. Absent are Stamps and Brown.
And Commissioner Brown is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and Commissioner Stamps had a prior commitment and plans to be here sometime around 10 o'clock. So he may be coming in. So I will declare that we have a quorum. You've had an opportunity to review the agenda. Do you hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Dyer has made a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Surratt is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't believe we have any minutes to approve at this meeting. No ceremonials. Any announcements that you're aware of?
No, ma'am.
Any public comment? Commissioner Surratt, you want to? Barb, you're the only one here. Did you sign up for public comment?
I said no.
Pardon?
I said no on that.
Thank you. All right, then we have, I'm assuming you guys didn't. The vast majority of the people who normally come to this meeting are at Rotary right now, so nobody knew that. All right, so we will pass on public comment. We have no reports. Let's move to old business. And the first thing that we need to do is the second of 2 readings to amend the Code of Regulations on meetings. And what we are changing is deleting the second public comment section, the one that was held at the end, but we are adding public comment during, after each one of the new business agenda items. So we have already approved this once. In order to put it in action, we need to approve it again. So,
I'll move to approve the amendment of the Code of Regulations.
Commissioner Surratt has made a motion to amend the Code of Regulations, Section 2-23, as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Dyer has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Don't we run efficient?
Yes, you do.
Lean and efficient.
Yes, Lee. All right. At the point in the agenda, and it took me, what, about 3 minutes to get here, of interviewing our 2 marina operator finalists and consideration and action to award the contract for management and operation of the Holiday Island Marina. Gentlemen, I want to tell you what we've done in order to try to be fair to both of you is we put together a list of questions, interview questions, that we would like to use for both of you. And we would like to interview you one at a time, if you're in agreement with that, and have you, the person who's not being interviewed, wait out in the reception area outside. Would that work?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Dyer, since I gave you authority to do the official coin
I
toss.
don't have a coin.
You don't have a coin.
I'm gonna have a coin.
All right, can you do a coin toss so we can see who goes first?
How are we gonna start this game?
Yes. We really are not inventing this as it goes along. We just think, you just think
It's
we are.
quarter to.
Visitor calls, right?
That's Colin's point of view,
Yeah.
you have authority.
I'm supposed to look at it and call it.
Oh, I already said tails.
He
I
said
was committed to it.
Huh?
He's-
You lose.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, Dan. You need water?
Absolutely. I go in there and I steal one of their cups each time and fill it with some water.
There's a bottle in the, bottles in the refrigerator on the bottom
Thank you.
door.
Chairs and just pull it up here so you can sit and get comfortable.
Take the witness stand,
Yes,
We want you to be comfortable.
raise your right hand.
because we intend to torture you, you know.
Yeah.
This
Turn
never
on the
gets,
spotlight.
it never gets easier.
Okay.
And do you want to explain how, oh, you did explain how. I'm tired, I've been ready.
That's okay. What we did is all of the commissioners had input into the questions. So, and they're really, we tried to make them cover all aspects of the management of the marina. So that's the direction that we've come from. Commissioner Surratt, do you want to start with the first
I
one?
sure will. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Our first question was to ask you to explain to us staffing for the marina and specifically your plans to provide personal on-site management. And also as a follow-up, do you have a plan for a supervisor type employee who can take over for you when you're not available?
Yes, that's kind of a loaded question. So we've done it a couple different ways in the past. We've done a one, everybody kind of has all roles situation. That was done more whenever I was on site quite a bit. I know that's kind of a point of contention that I'm sure we'll cross. And then as we grew the business and got busier and busier where I couldn't just be down there pumping gas every day, we did hire specifically a manager, a dock hand is what we would call it. So we'll have dock hands. Mostly their job is just to stay on the gas dock, grab boats, pump gas. Customer needs ice, get ice, whatever they need. Just tend to the customer. And we have a manager on duty at all times. This year was later, Paul. So normally, since we're open 72 hours, it's really hard for one person to just be the manager or supervisor. It's got to be delegated and split up. And so there's normally, their job would normally be to handle the checkouts of the boats, fill out the paperwork and things like that, the things that definitely need to be done more delicately. And we've also had cooks in the past, just a dedicated cook, which we didn't do this year, but I see that as a mistake. We definitely need to bring back the dedicated cook. Yes, we do have a supervisor for whenever the manager is not there, the operator is not there, I should say. Calling them a supervisor is not really something we've ever done.
Well,
We
there's
call
got
them a
just a
manager.
term for
Mhm.
generic,
Um,
secondly demanded.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on the not presence. So one of our plans this year is to, or next year, if we get it, is to add on to the dock, or to basically give myself an office space, which the marina is lacking right now. I don't know of a single department in Holiday Island that doesn't have an office, but the marina is one.
Just as a follow-up to that, did you feel like that level of staffing worked well for the customers that you had, the people that you coming to use the marina?
Yes, I hear my customers all the time tell me how much of a great staff we have down there, how friendly and kind they are. We've had our problems, of course, every business has their problems, but everyone seems to love it. They're really good about giving out my number if I'm not there, if somebody has any questions about slips and things like that. We've always had a couple people who've had a couple of years of experience stay on staff, so we don't really ever start with a whole new boatload of people, no pun intended. So there's always somebody who knows what's going on.
Because as commissioners, our obligation is to create the best financial position, but also to provide the very best customer service to the people that use the marina, and make sure that they like it, they want to come back, they feel like they're taken care of, and also to make sure that there's really good coordination between the administrative office and, the marina. So, good. All right, Mr. Dunn.
The next question deals with expansion and improvements to the marina, and specifically what in detail your commitment to those expansion and improvements would be.
So there's a 7-year contract up at stake. I like the idea of a split with the capital improvement. I offered $40,000 a year. I think it's a good idea. I do see a couple flaws with it, one of which is whoever gets it, say we're putting in $40,000 a year, $50,000 a year, 7 years, that's quite a bit of money. $350,000 if it's $50,000 a year. So the biggest concern I have is, say I'm putting out $50,000 a year in year 5, you'll start the plans to do the capital improvement. Year 6 gets approved, year 7 it gets implemented, and then year 8 we have to do this all over again. And there's no guarantee that I'm gonna make $1 off of those $50,000 investments. That's my concern with that way to do things. It's really hard to say, yeah, we're going to take your money and put it back into it, and we promise you we're going to do that with time for you to make your money back. So I kind of would like to see one of two different things. Either the plans start year 1, because it does take time. You saw how long it took to get the walkway approved by the Corps of Engineers. A whole new dock's not going to be any slower or faster. So if we could get that rolling, year 1, obviously it's not going to make it on this year's budget. So it would have to be next year's budget in order to get approved. And if it gets approved next year's budget, this time next year, 6 months of Corps Engineer approval, and then 6 months of build, you're still looking at 2 years from now before you even have a brand new first dock. And that's if you started almost immediately. So you're already 100,000 deep for us as an investor, that we're not going to see any gains on that $100,000. And that's if things start immediately. So that's my concern. The way I would solve that, if there was no immediate action by the board to replace the first dock or put in a large capital improvement, just to take that $40,000 and start putting it in myself. And my plan would be to immediately get court approval on taking there's the overnight slips that were allowed, and get rid of 2 of them. And that would give me an 18 by 20-foot hole that I could fill in wall, and that'd be the kitchen. And that would free up the kitchen as the current office, as well as storage. So in the store, we have a counter that's really just for extra goods, extra chips, candy, things like that we don't have anywhere else to put them, so we've got to keep them inside the store behind the counter. So if we could free up the current kitchen as an office and storage space for all those extra goods, we could get rid of that whole counter and add a lot more floor space in the store. So it's kind of a big struggle we've had the last few years is we've maxed out our space. We've got canoes sitting on the floor of our store where there should be a merchandise rack. So I think that would be my plan, would be instead of, I would love for it to happen immediately. But if it didn't, then that would be my first go-to. And then whenever we start, I think whenever you actually implement the plan to replace the first dock is whenever you ask the operator it's time to start forking up.
And we appreciate your candor in that. I think we all need to, we want to create something that's a win-win for everybody. So it really helps to know your vision on these types of things too. Did you have any follow-ups at all to that?
One follow-up that, to that particular question dealt with food and beverage and the fact that food and beverage services are a critical part of the marina's presence on Table Rock Lake. And how do you propose growing those elements of the overall operation? I think you touched partially on that with the expansion of the kitchen.
Yeah, so we put the first kitchen down there. There wasn't food or alcoholic beverages, I should say. Beer is really all we serve. There was not that whenever we got here, so we did implement that. And the kitchen's small. We make it work for pizzas. We used to do sandwiches. With waste and the size kitchen we had, we scrapped the sandwiches and stuck with the pizza and wings. With a bigger kitchen, we'd like to expand what we have to offer. Bring back the sandwiches, maybe put some burgers down there. We have like a real kitchen instead of just a pizza oven. And I think it's absolutely a must. Almost 7 years ago, whenever we put the kitchen in there, that was a must. Whenever I came in the first day to bid the job 8 years ago, this is my idea, to put food down there, we can put beer down there, make it more of a place where people want to go.
Your expansion of the 2 dock areas, would that include your office space? So you're talking about an expanded kitchen and storage area. Where would the kitchen be? I mean, your office and a plan for a dining area. Is that included in kind of what you're thinking here?
Well,
Pretty short order.
we have picnic tables.
Yeah.
We have 6 of them.
So there's no urgency to put in a big dining room?
Not a dining room. I think if we, like, especially with just a small remodel like this, an interior dining room, we wouldn't have space for that.
No.
If we rebuilt the first dock, I would absolutely put plans to do that. And that's actually the original plans that I sent Danny from 2017, I think is what it was. They had a real kitchen with a seating area inside.
I'm just trying to get a picture.
Yeah, so it'd only be like a 450 square foot kitchen. So it's not massive, but it's
Yeah,
better than what we
decent
have
that you
now.
can work in.
One of the things that helps draw people to the marina and increase activity in the marina, of course, are water-related events. And, y'all started some of those within the last year or so. Can you tell us, you mentioned the fireworks also
Yes.
that you're considering. Can you kind of brainstorm with us some of the ideas that you have in terms of events that you might be able to sponsor to help bring in people?
Yeah. So we're going to keep the team trail going. Our classic or championship, however you want to call it, is October 1st and 2nd.
How many boats does that bring in each time?
Normally about 19. And that's
Say it again.
about 19 teams each.
You tell me what the event is.
It's the team trail, so there's a tournament fishing series where we have 6 individual tournaments. You could consider them like a qualifications, and then the 2-day classic.
I didn't know the term team
Yeah, sorry.
trail. I'm not afraid to ask.
No, please do. And so we're gonna keep that going. This year on the 1st, we have live music. We'll also have some food. You have to fish 3 tournaments in order to qualify for the classic, and so we've had 19 teams fish 3 times. So of course, we want to improve that for next year. The fireworks, which that's immediate priority once this is decided. If we get it, we need to call and order fireworks immediately. Because we want a good day for one thing, but the sooner the better. Fireworks, it'd be a whole community thing. It wouldn't just be the marina putting it on. I mean, we would host it, we'd pay for it, delegate everything, but we'd hope it'd be a whole community function, just like the Holiday Island's birthday bash was in 2021. Fireworks and the lake just seem to go together, and I mean, if somebody's going to do it, it should be us. So, but location isn't yet decided because we haven't really moved forward, but I've always wanted to do it off of the water at the marina, off of a floating barge. That's kind of my dream.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Whether it's shut off at the 9-hole or not, it's fine, but it needs to happen. So the community should have the fireworks, bring people in to enjoy them, and we should have it in our backyard.
Years ago, that's how we did it. It was a barge out to
Really?
We've been to Colorado, up in Summit County, Breckenridge, Dillon, that area. And on the 4th of July, they do fireworks on Lake Dillon on a barge, and it is spectacular. I mean, especially up there where it echoes off the mountains, you know. But just the visibility and everything, it's...
Yeah, we can get dock frames and build a temporary floating barge. I've always wanted to have it a stage during the daytime for music, and
So would you work with a fireworks company that actually puts the show on?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would go through I'm sure they have to be licensed and all that. Yeah, we've been trying to do that ourselves.
Good, I feel better.
I have a friend from high
I don't
school
think we
that
have
their
enough
family
fireworks.
does that for a living, but no, we're gonna pay
It's
a
gotta
big
be
company to
close.
come in and put it on right. Also, kids fishing weekend. It's not kids fishing weekend. It's called free fishing weekend. Game and Fish puts it on every June. It's just a weekend where you don't have to have a license to fish. It's made for kids. Kids don't have to have a license to fish, but if they go fishing, their parents do. And so this is kind of help support the parents and say, you don't need a license to go fish with your kid. So I've already talked to a couple people about free fishing weekend and putting on a kids weekend, teaching kids how to fish. There's a couple of fishing guides that are already interested in holding classes and things like that. So that's one of the events we're going to put on next year, hopefully put on next year. Been talking about it for a couple of years, so it's nice to actually get the wheels rolling on it.
And putting it together with the fishing guide certainly makes sense too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to teach them very much as far as fishing goes.
It's a good marketing opportunity for the fishing guides. so.
That's true. I think they're just more doing it because it's something nice to do.
Fishing in their blood.
Yeah,
Spread
yeah,
it
so if they
around.
can pass it on to a bunch of kids, I think that's gonna make their day. And that's kind of the whole point of it, is just to make a bunch of kids stay and bring out a bunch of family.
I know the kids, the fishing days at Roaring River at the trout park are just
Oh
insane.
my gosh, yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and if we get big enough, Game and Fish actually has a aquarium on wheels.
Oh,
Oh.
And I've tried to rent it out, but they're like, don't even fill out the application because you have to like be there. I'm like, okay. So if you get big enough, you can actually get that, but you gotta start somewhere.
that's right.
Also, we'd like to do some water sports tournaments. You were asking about water sports. We're trying to decide whether it be spring of next year or fall next year, but we do want to put on some sort of wake sports tournament, whether it be wake surfing or wakeboarding. Probably wakeboarding, just because it's a little bit more exciting for anybody watching. And it'd have to get approval from the board because we would want to do that on the point, which isn't part of my leased area. And speaking of which, that would be the same for the free fishing weekend. That would be best out on the fishing pier. And so that would require y'all's approval for that project as well. And I'm actually trying to get that one going, even if I don't. So, and then back to some of the fishing tournaments. Some of the guys have inquired about a walleye tournament for the winter time. So we'll probably have that going this winter too.
Well, and that's pretty much an off-season, so that'd help bring in people during the winter, I would think.
Yeah, and that's when the fishermen really shine. They don't like fishing in July.
It's too hot. Understand that. Commissioner Schmatt, you want to do the next one?
Yes, a percentage of your gross sales is to be paid to the district. It's critical that an accurate accounting be made and conveyed to the district. How do you propose handling this important task with complete transparency?
Well, I mean, we've got pretty good transparency right now. We're supposed to report the gross to you guys every month because we have to pay 2.4% to the Corps of Engineers. So we already provide you with the monthly gross income. We would just do the same. If you want it broken down a little bit more, we could break it down. I know the contract or the requested contract asked for complete point of sale. That's kind of intrusive, especially because it's password protected. For one thing, none of my employees get to go look at that, and I don't really
I
see.
think to some degree, we're looking at some sort of interface with the district systems, so that when we do pay all of those sales tax, that we have good documentation to back up, what we're submitting.
Right, and so my back end, all of my point of sales aren't handwritten receipts. They're not old school. They're every transaction, even the cash, is all digital. So everything goes online, and then I just log into a website, and I can hit last month report, and it'll print out everything. So if you're looking for transparency, the best way to do it might be able for me just to click print, and straight from that website, you have that information. Normally what I do right now is last month, and then I just type in an email to Ms. Cheryl that this is how much we made last month, this is 2.4% of it, I'll bring you a check tomorrow. I don't print it out, but I mean, that's easily done, so.
I think our accountant, because she's the one that interfaces with the tax people in Little Rock, feels like she needs to have more documentation to be
Yeah.
sure that she's comfortable with what she's got in terms of paying those taxes. So that would be
Right.
something we
Well,
would,
luckily, y'all don't have to pay any taxes on my income.
there's something that has to be done that I know she said we really needed some additional reports. It sounds like you've got all the stuff that you need. We just may need to get you to provide some of that.
Yeah, and we can work on breakdowns and what you want to see. I gave Danny some fuel numbers from last year. We've already beat those fuel numbers, by the way. I think it was, what was it, 12,000 gallons last year?
Sounds right,
Something
yeah.
like that. So I can give breakdowns on more in-depth breakdowns if y'all would like to.
So all that is available then.
Yeah, and I will say one thing real quick about the contract, the current contract. It was not written for the district. I was 25. I had nothing to do with that. But after I figured it out, it was definitely written for me instead of the district. So like I told Danny whenever we met to kind of go over it, that it needed to change.
Yeah.
There's a lot of changes that are necessary. So.
Could it be, have anything, are we responsible for any part of the excise tax on alcohol sales?
All of it.
All of it?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, sir. We
And that-
pay the
that
excise
could-
tax. And
That's Jennifer's
that's-
concern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
probably
really-
what the accountant is concerned about, is the excise tax that we're obligated for alcohol sales.
But y'all don't have any alcohol sales down there. I have alcohol sales down there.
we have to submit excise tax on sales at the marina.
God forbid that Arkansas is
I
getting
don't
double.
I don't see why you would have to pay any sort of taxes on somebody leasing a space for you.
I think that's the case.
Yeah, we can.
You
Yeah.
definitely, if y'all are paying taxes on my business, y'all need to cease and desist.
We're just writing a check.
Yeah.
We are not.
If y'all been paying my taxes this whole time, I need to go get my tax money back.
I guess the bottom line is, we're gonna need you and Danny and the accountant to all get together to make sure that everybody's comfortable about the reporting that's coming out, that
Okay.
we're protected and you're protected also.
Happily.
Schneider?
In my mind, this is a biggie. Knowing the importance of good communication, how will you ensure the district manager and this board is fully informed of any issues, challenges, or opportunities relative to the marina?
That is a big one. One of my issues has always not necessarily been the board. It's just been the fact that it's always changing. And there was never really a good reporting or communication system set up. Lawrence Blood and I had a pretty good communication system. But that was about it.
Is it just verbal?
It was just verbal. If I needed something, I knew I could call him, and if he had an issue, he knew he could call me. It's the same way with Danny. However, the beginning of this year, there was definitely some issues. Whenever, obviously, the new walkway got put in, there was a lot of, I use the word ignorance. A lot of people get offended by that word, but it's not an offensive word to me. It just means you don't know something, but you can find out. A lot of people don't realize that that's part of my job. No offense, Danny, but there was a lot of button heads, I would say, at the beginning of the year. And I think it was due to a lack of communication over whose responsibilities were whom, and not because of we just didn't do jobs. It's just because the contract was written poorly the first time, and like the parking lot, for example, it's not really ours to take care of. It's unfortunate, it's weird, it shouldn't be that way. And whenever a new board comes around, they don't know the contract very well. And so there's the lack of communication where this is my job, they think it's their job, or they think this is my job, it's not my job. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues of communication that we've had over the last several years, is just a changing board that, not due to y'all's fault, just haven't been informed and educated. That's why I offered to take everyone down there at the beginning of the year and show you around and tell you what's been going on, because if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, none of the three of us were on the board 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
Mhm. Nobody was. It's a completely new board.
Ken wasn't.
There's been 2 new district managers
Yeah.
since then. And then, of course, probably 4 or 5 board members who popped up and then left during that time period too. And I think one of the biggest issues is how do we go forward with a new coming board members. There's 2 seats available this year. I hope Danny stays around for a while, like Danny. But we don't know when that's going to happen.
We chained him to the chair.
You don't have a choice. So I think Dan and I would definitely need to sit down and hash out a monthly reporting of this is what's going on, these are our issues. Normally we've just gone full steam ahead at taking care of our own issues by ourselves and just asking for help when we need it. So I guess there's been a lack of communication whenever we don't need help. So,
Just because I think the marina is such an important part of Holiday Island, and it's our biggest asset. I highly recommend, and it's up to Danny to make the call, but I would highly recommend that you 2 maybe have a short weekly sit down in his office, like he does with other department managers, and a little State of the Union, you know.
Well,
That's
and maybe add you to the agenda for the monthly meeting for a report, maybe not every month.
Maybe
during the
quarterly
summertime
or
Yeah,
quarterly.
let's say you should
At
do-
some point, have you?
I would say right after Memorial Day weekend, that'd be a good one, because that's our first big boom.
Yeah.
And then maybe every month until
Yeah.
now.
And
Yeah.
you know, as far as board members, it's unfortunate. I mean, we should all, as board members, rely upon our district manager to be the point man,
Yes.
to work with you and department managers. Unfortunately, we all get caught up in things periodically as we try to answer to members of the community, and we run our mouths when we shouldn't sometimes about things we really don't know much about, or go down and go direct to you with questions, which isn't always good. But maybe some of that could be headed off if we had right after the first of the year, when we do have new board members, have a little, you know, it could be limited to the marina manager, but could also be all departments, you know, just a little quick, this is what we do, and this is how we operate, and these are our boundaries.
I think that's a great idea, and the district used to do that. They did it orientation every year with every department, and the public's invited.
And we did it.
And that's why we.
About 6 months ago.
6 months ago, we
Right, and that's because we,
Yeah.
and that's what I say whenever 6 months ago, I was like, yeah, we used to do this and we stopped because of COVID, y'all should come out and do it again.
Yeah.
And I definitely think it should be on your yearly agenda to go do that at the beginning of the year.
most definitely.
Make sure you save mine until springtime.
Yeah, we don't have to stand out there in the winter either.
Thank you.
Your strategy for managing ongoing maintenance, both general maintenance and emergency events like weather-related events. And one of the reasons is, like Bob says, we have people in the community that say, well, this or that happened that the marina didn't get taken care of. Tell us, what I typically do is say, you need to go talk to the marina manager about that. Go to the source, the department head first. Believe me, I know nothing about running a marina, don't want to. And the last time we had a boat down there was about 8 years ago, so, but anyway, tell us about how you manage ongoing maintenance kind of issues, plus emergency situations.
Luckily, we haven't had too many emergency situations lately. It depends, like as far as like standard maintenance goes, there's, for boat docks, there's not too much standard maintenance that goes. You don't have to go around and grease axles, and things like that. You do have winch towers that do need to be greased on occasion. But I mean, that's as far as maintenance goes, there's not much. What we're doing right now, we replace all the boards on the courtesy dock. Next year for the budget that we're about to turn in, I have down that we should replace all of the boards on the gas dock. So you really just look at what we have the budget for and what we need to get done and kind of prioritize things. The gas dock is a huge priority for next year. We're kind of a year behind ever since COVID. The walkway was supposed to come during COVID, and once COVID hit, the district manager at the time said, no more spending, we need to, just in case something severe happens, we don't know how long this is gonna last, we need to save a lot of money. So that was an easy one for us. We're like, we need a new walkway, but we can survive one more year without it. And really, the way I prioritize just comes with experience. I started building docks and lifts in Beaver Lake in 2009. And that was one of the big things we did, was go around and fix storm damage, and things like that. And one of the biggest issues with the marina that we've had in the past was the cables. So if somebody comes in here and tells you that they're going to overhaul the cables or anything like that, it's already done. We went through all 30-something cables and replaced them with stainless steel, except for one of them, two of them, three of them. If they go up to the shore, I normally do galvanized, because the stainless can rub on the rocks and degrade faster than the galvanized will.
And there's 30 cables holding all
I
that?
think there's 36 on all 4 docks total. So those have already been done. We did that because our emergencies, that was one of our biggest emergencies, was you'll get a storm and you'll have this wind and you have this rusty cable, and that momentum of that dock with the wind, once it catches that rusty cable, it'll break. And so normally there's a couple, you've got a cable to back it up, for example. There's 2 cables going in each direction on most of the docks. The first dock's not that way. We actually added a whole new anchor because we did lose a cable on the first dock. And whenever that happens, first dock was into the second dock. And so I got the call. I think Deaton was fire chief at the time. And he called me. It was sometime in the middle of the night. It was storming. He said, hey, we got our dock up against this other dock. So I came in, and I don't think he liked what I did because it was the middle of the night. It was still windy, and all I did was tie a rope around the pole where the dock was sitting the other dock. I just tied them together. And I said, okay, we're done here. And he looked at me like, what? I was like, well, there's nothing we can do tonight.
Not a lot you can do, man.
There's not a lot we can do tonight. And so you just have to tie it there and just make sure that nobody's boat's getting damaged. That's a priority. Make sure nobody's getting damaged. Make sure the infrastructure is not getting damaged further. And then once the storm clears, you go in and you clean up your mess and fix things right. But the dock as a whole, if you're looking for like an individual maintenance plan, yeah, I mean, there's the little things, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's like the golf course where you got to go through and make sure all your machines are fine and make sure that your grass is exactly kempt and things like that. Net maintenance on the boats, of course, that's a huge thing. We've got 6 boats, and they all have to have service, and they only get service 3 times a year. And you gotta stay up on it. Whenever something breaks, you gotta go fix it. And as far as priorities go, it really just depends on people. If there's a safety concern, that's always the top of the list. If somebody's boat's in danger, it's normally the second, because people's lives are obviously more important. And then it just goes from there. If it's not as dangerous, then it's pushed down. So there's a lot of dangerous stuff out there, or can be dangerous stuff. And that's the biggest thing, is just knowing what docks can do and how they react in severe weather. And knowing being able to look at a frame and say, that frame's in good shape and that frame's not. And knowing that this needs to be beefed up, or right now our planned maintenance is on the second dock. So we had a storm earlier this year that yanked the dock real hard, and the winch towers, so you got this cable coming down and then it goes up this tower. So all the weight's pulling down at the bottom, and it wants to torque that tower this way, and it'll actually rip them off the docks. And it's got it where it's vented and it's raised up the platform a little bit. It's just got a little hump. So nothing severe, nothing major, but we do need to go straighten things out and re-weld. So things like that, I won't mess with during the season, because why have a hole whenever people are trying to walk around and things like that if it's not, there's no safety issue, there's no walking hazards. So things like that we'll baby until the end of the season, where we can go back in and fix it correctly.
I would encourage you, Colin, if you are successful at getting this lease again, that there are maintenance issues that come up that are going to take a while.
Mm-hmm.
But they concern the dock users greatly, and I'll use an example, when there was no fuel available. And we do have a pretty efficient way here at Holiday Island, through the Holiday Island happenings and the email system, to get the word out to the public, that, hey, there's a situation here with the gas that we're going to have to wait a while to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be prepared to make alternative decisions about how you're going to get your fuel, There was a situation this summer that I got a couple calls on, people concerned because two of the docks, there were no lights out there, and if it's a situation that you know about and that it's going to take a while to get fixed, we can help you.
I could speak on the lights issue. So the lights down there, we replace the lights every single year on that dock. We replaced them with the regular light bulbs. People complained about them burning out all the time, so we tried LEDs. They last a lot longer, and our lights come on automatically at night. And one of the docks is on 24/7, but I'll speak to that too. The LEDs, I don't know what's going on with our docks electricity. We need a whole overhaul, and that's one of my budgets for next year, is to redo the electricity for the dock. I was in electrical engineering in college. I've worked side by side with electricians, and something's not right about the docks. It's the LEDs we do have out there, they're dim. They're not fully bright.
That's what I.
And so the lights complaints aren't necessarily that they're not there and not on. It's just that they're so dim you can't. They're not bright.
Voltage or anything.
And it's almost on every dock. So I'm pretty sure it's a whole overall electrical issue. And I've had an electrician come out and look at it, and he says that the lines running to the dock aren't big enough. We need a bigger wire coming down to feed the whole place. So it's not we have a telephone pole down there too that it'd have to, on a hill. So they would need was it cherry truck or whatever, the bucket trucks?
Bucket truck.
They would need a bucket truck and all that. So he was already like, this is beyond my scope. So we're getting some bids from some bigger companies who can come out and actually look at overhauling the electrical. But yeah, it's not right. It's something's weird about the lighting system. The LEDs shouldn't blow out like they have been. So we've actually started going back to the original bulbs instead of LEDs. And yeah, that's
An issue.
Do people just, Do your customers call you and let you know that there's a problem like that, or do they just whine to us?
They just whined. They've done that for 8 years.
Or
I mean,
to me.
They
Or
figure-
to you, or,
yeah.
They figure that's why they pay us the big bucks.
Yeah, right. Which is why I tell them they need to go talk to the manager of the department.
It's
Oh.
just typical human nature, rather than, I was cold in the clubhouse yesterday, and I went and talked to Helen and said, do something about it. She says, fine, and it warmed right up in there. You can't just say, boy, it was cold in the clubhouse yesterday.
I'll bring that up at the next meeting.
I think that's a problem that every manager faces, is people won't go to the source. And I was just curious if that was part of the issue, and,
It is, and
When they wanted
I've
to
seen
be
a
on
few
Zoom, did you
issues.
call him?
I have. There's always little issues like that,
Yeah.
and you just have to deal with them.
And all of us have been in roles where we had to deal with customers, so we understand that you're not always going to please everybody.
Okay.
We want to do the best we can, but,
I think we have a good track record
yeah,
as far as
we
that
have
goes,
to,
so.
we have to
Thank you.
route questions back to you also.
And we filter them.
Yes, yes, exactly. All right, Commissioner Shrek, you want to take number 7? Yes, number 7.
Maintaining a close and positive relationship with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will be extremely beneficial. Describe your plans to develop and maintain that relationship. Hypothetically, you as a marina manager become aware of a slip lease holder who is violating Corps rules. How would you handle the situation?
Contact them and tell them to change their ways. I mean, there's not much you can do whenever you're violating Corps rules and regulations.
I actually read through the contract last night, or better scanned, I suppose, and it included the Corps contract, and it requires that you have to have boat registration and boat insurance.
Mhm.
I can remember my husband taking that stuff down there. I didn't realize it was a Corps rule.
Yeah.
Are there other rules that are- Are there other rules that the slip owners need to abide by?
They're all in the lease as far as that's concerned, and there's even a link, I think y'all put that in there this year, that goes to an actual Corps of Engineers like guidelines page, or maybe it's just our guidelines page that we took from them. But they're linked to it in their lease that they sign, and then we post the rules, like there's no fishing within 50 feet of the dock, no swimming within 50 feet of the dock, a couple things like that.
One thing that I had heard is that assume our community seems to be taken over by VRBOs. And if I own a VRBO, but I previously had a slip at the marina, and I decide to offer that slip as one of the perks to go along with my VRBO, that is a violation of Corps rules. To
Like
let-
subleasing,
Yeah, so on, this weekend, one of my customers that's renting my house,
That's boat.
and they come from Texas, they could bring their boat and put it in my slip, and next week, somebody else,
Sort of.
do we have people that do that?
The Corps of Engineers, no, we don't. The Corps of Engineers, they're picky on making money on their property, on their leased area, on their area. So we have a contract with them that says we pay them 2.4% of gross income, and they're happy with us making money. Resorts can do that. So if you have a private boat dock or you're a resort with a community dock, you can't rent that slip out yearly, but you can include it in your vacation rental. Our contract with our slip leases says they're not allowed to sublease their contract, and that would fall under that. So the Corps of Engineers, if you wanted to get technical, I think the biggest rule that you would be breaking, or law you would be breaking, would be we're not allowed to sublease you're not allowed to sublease to me without getting approval from them. I'm not allowed to sublease without getting approval from them and you. So if somebody's doing that, they don't have approval from the court. They don't have approval to have that sublease. Now, they're not technically subleasing it with a VRBO, but, I mean, we don't allow it here. We had an issue where somebody thought that was happening, but he was letting his neighbor borrow it, his friend. And
Was that recently,
yeah.
a month ago, or?
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and there was actually another jet ski in there, and the same guy that complained, of course to y'all, complained again, and this time it was to me, and he sent me a picture of the jet ski in there, and I was like, I know whose jet ski that is. So I texted him and was like, is this yours? And he's like, yeah, Mike's letting us borrow a slip. And I was like, well, that's fine. I'm like, I don't mind you bring your jet ski in. Mike's boat's not in this slip. If he wants you, if he says it's okay if you use the slip for the weekend, that doesn't bug me. Now, if you're selling it or using it as a VRBO entity, basically, that's a different story. And that's not.
Do you have to have much contact with the Corps of Engineers?
That's what I was gonna ask too.
Or is it one of those things you just want to stay out of their way?
I feel like I have a great relationship. We had the same, they have different departments, if you would, and different things like that, but our agent that's assigned to us, that's basically our go-to. I think we have a great relationship. He's kind of newer. Michael Hurley is his name. He just got brought on. He replaced Rebecca was the last one, and I had her 5 years, I think, and he's been here for a couple. But I mean, we've had a great working relationship. They come down every year and inspect the marina. Normally, we give them a couple things to tell us to fix, but we've always got passing colors on everything. And they're really easy. If I have an issue, I can just text them, send them a picture of, hey, we need approval to cut this down. We had some vines a couple years ago that were growing over the walkway, and you have to get approval to cut those down. And so all it took was just a picture and just a quick question, hey, can I get approval? And they said, yeah, hold on, let me get it. So they sent me an official letter of approval, and we were able to get the vines out of the way. So I think we have a great,
So they're real
great
responsive
relationship.
to you.
Yeah, and I mean, I built boat docks and boat lifts, so doing that, you have to have a real understanding of core rules and regulations, what's allowed, what's not allowed. Using gas-powered equipment on core property is a big one. Yeah, so if you go down, like, I don't know how legal it is for them to mow below core property, like that kind of stuff, but they don't mess with marinas very much. They don't really like to keep it clean. But if you were to go chop down a tree and use the chainsaw, then they could come after you pretty hard. But they'll give you approval to do stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So you can use a chainsaw on that tree if it's about to fall on your electric on your boat dock.
Well, it's good to know that they're responsive to your tag. I mean, that you can even just text them, that you don't have to go through all this paperwork to get something
Yeah,
done.
most of the time you don't have to go through all the paperwork. But when you have like a new walkway or you want to build
big
a dock,
project.
then you have to go through all the hoops.
Mr. Dyer?
Colin, again, hypothetically, here's a situation for you. You're made aware of a hostile conflict going on at the ramp between two marina patrons. How?
Well, I'd try and diffuse it if I could.
Have you had that happen? Have you seen any?
Not at the launch ramp, not between two patrons. We haven't really had two customers.
Fighting over time?
Right, we've had couples scream at each other, get angry and walk off. We've had people just upset. I don't know how you can be on the lake or be in a bad mood,
Back the
but
boat up correctly. I've been there, done that.
it doesn't happen often, but we have had to call the cops on people for being belligerent, and just angry and yelling. Most of the time alcohol's involved. But it's normal whenever you pick up the phone and start dialing, they're pretty responsive to what's about to happen. So they normally change their attitude and disappear, and then the cop will show up and take a quick report. But luckily, most of the time, people are in a good mood with our business.
So it has happened then, that's interesting. I'm gonna jump to the last question. The lease you're asking for is a 7-year lease. What do you feel your greatest accomplishment would be at the end of that lease if you're chosen?
I would want to keep going with what I've got going. And by that I mean, when we got here, the arena was whitewashed walls and a drop-down ceiling that was all yellowed. No food, no restroom on the dock, no gas, subpar rental boats, and I mean, we've cleaned up the place. People tell us all the time how much cleaner it is than it ever has been. The remodels, the additions, the paint, just the new paint on things. Growing it from our first year, we made $150,000 as KP's dock service, gross income. Last year we made $420,000. So I contest that.
So you said gross, right?
Gross.
Because
And
you
that does
have-
not include the slip income.
Yeah. But I mean,
That
the
is
wages
just
that go
our
out of
store.
that.
Yeah, we have, oh yeah, insurance, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I imagine.
But, I mean, that growth, and just what we've done with the facilities to improve the facilities is, I mean, it's a dream come true. I used to drive by Starkey all the time when you heard that speech and just dream of having $1 million so I could buy it and do something with it. Still couldn't buy it if I wanted to. Of course, it's 10 times as much now. I think somebody offered him $14 million for it recently. And then redrew his offer after he saw how much work it actually required. But I would like to double what we've done, really. I mean, the store's too small. Like the whole thing needs to go. It needs to be like the first walkway now, like that concrete walkway that everyone loves. That whole first dock needs to look like that. We need to, preferably within the next 7 years, replace the second dock. We have way too many 9x20 slips down there. Right now they're full, and that's due to COVID. Once COVID hit, that dock was 3/4, 5/8 empty, and once COVID hit, it filled right up. So I think that'll probably stagger off, but I mean that's going to be a big one. That dock's small, low roof, and it's the oldest one there is, other than the first dock, I'm pretty sure. So I'd say that, but I mean that'd be my legacy, would be taking it from that whitewashed, old, rundown place and making it something that compares to Campbell Point. Yeah, that's my vision. That's always been my vision.
I do remember last year when you asked for 2 additional docks that we weren't able to fund last year. Would you, and at that point my thought was that we were just going to add 2 more docks down there. Would you actually replace the second dock because it is the oldest and the smallest and doesn't fit most of the boats now? How would that, what would be, if your dream was that we could find the money to do that, how would you do that?
I would replace it with 24s and 28-foot slips.
So rather than putting an additional slips on there, you just replace that one?
Yeah, and on the other docks, especially the 4th dock, I would add slips instead of replace. On the 3rd dock, I would add slips instead of replace. The second dock, I mean, you can add slips to it, and if you did, I would recommend a houseboat slip or something like that, something that you could easily detach. And then if you ever replace it in the future, you could keep that upgrade. But, I mean, they don't paint frames anymore. And that's painted. If that kind of tells you how old it is. Everything's galvanized, they dip it in zinc and lead, and I'm not sure how environmentally friendly that is, but that's how all docks are built. It's how all boat lifts are built now. And that's welded together. They're all bolted now. So you can, it's probably older than I am. But there's, it's decrepit, it's bent, it's just, I mean, it's, whenever it was refloated wrong, as well, that didn't help. So I would definitely replace the first dock, and yeah, let's hold events down there that bring people to town, and that'd probably be my biggest phase 2 is, like, if you consider the last 7 years, phase 1, phase 2 would be replacing the first dock, adding some new slips, and making events that blow everything out of the water.
I think I can speak for everybody that we appreciate your candor this morning.
Yeah.
Do any of you have other questions?
Did we want to ask you about the pad at the end of the
The,
dock?
you know,
We have got an email from a resident asking about the end of the dock work, and the Corps has approved the replacement of that area, is that correct?
The sidewalk
The sidewalk
extension.
where the.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking.
I'm sorry, I wasn't specific enough.
That's fine. I was thinking about a lily pad, those floating mats.
I meant walking pad.
Yes, and I did talk to the construction company a couple weeks ago. Their excavator broke a wheel, which I mean, that's a big chunk of metal. I don't know how you do that. It is fixed, so they're supposed to be here. I'm just waiting for them to show up, really.
Okay. We have a contract, an agreement in place with someone to do that work.
Yes, yeah, those are construction.
Okay,
Good.
okay. Well, that
That helps to know that. I'll let you.
Yeah, and we just moved the walkway down a little bit, and that was to get it out of their way so that they could work on that walkway a little bit or something.
I think the email that we got, the resident was concerned that there were a lot of rocks and things where you would step off the ramp.
Yeah, and
Safety.
it's not in a great spot, but once they do that sidewalk, they can just move the walkway over, and it should stay there permanently.
Good,
Well,
good.
except in high floods.
Yeah.
Until the 500-year flood.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Oh, I was asked to ask you about the gate at the point, that yellow gate, to make sure that it's openable
Okay.
for the fire department to get down there. Somebody was concerned about the padlock not being accessible or not having a key to it. So I'm
Okay.
just passing along the concern.
I'll check with Mike. Mike probably knows.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll check on that.
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Good morning.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem, not a problem. But in fact, I think we're going to take like a 2-minute break. So some of us that have had too much coffee
Yes.
can manage that.
And you?
Sorry today.
Where's Larry? I'm sunblind.
You missed the good
What's
part.
going on with this?
You need to call in, because isn't he the one that?
How are you today?
Oh, good. Well, nervous. He was working on the sound system,
Yeah.
but as he was moving things around, this got moved around and unplugged and whatnot.
Sunglasses all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I just got out of Rotary meeting.
So, I mean, the record shows that it's on.
Oh, it's good. Lady talk about wildflowers.
Oh, good.
Just don't know
So
why.
people put them in salt and pepper shakers, seeds, shake them around.
Yeah.
Plant wildflowers everywhere.
He was very excited about it. Hey, how are you?
Good.
But it was a good program. There's even some that Supposedly deer won't eat it. And those go in my yard.
So I get to listen to his, or do I have to vacate the premises?
That's a good question.
No, I think if I understood her correctly, she wanted to deal individually, separately.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said last time we did it, we could watch the ones after us, but that's fine. Good luck.
You?
I'm good.
I don't know. I was looking to see if I could figure out.
This is the
camera.
Thanks a lot.
Catbird seat there.
Okay.
That's what I've seen.
Nothing different.
Glad to take it.
Must have been a long
So she
hour
wouldn't
sitting
have
out
time.
there. It
No,
took
that's all
longer
right.
than we thought.
Well, I had to order printer ink. I was gonna print them too, and then, but I take care of this here. Thank you for waiting.
Absolutely.
And you're still
We're
still recording over there. All right.
Made an unsuccessful attempt to get the camera going.
Well, we'll just keep doing what we're doing here.
Work.
Dylan, what we have is, to be fair, and I may have already, maybe repeating myself, we created a list of 10 questions so that we would ask the same questions of both of you. We thought that would be a fair way to do it. And what we've basically done is just gone around the table and taken turns. So, and then occasionally, something you say may trigger one of us to ask a follow-up question or something along that line. So that's kind of the procedure that we've done up until this time. Before we start, I spent some time really going over all the proposals, and I want to make absolutely sure, because you approached it a little bit different, and I want to be sure that I'm totally understanding it. You were basically saying off of the boat slip rentals that we have, that you would take 20% to service the watchman for the dock.
Yes.
65% would go to HICID. And then the remaining 15% would go into a fund to do major maintenance issues that you would also then contribute to. Is that correct?
Renovations, yes.
Okay, so I did interpret it correctly. I wanted to be sure that I did. All right. Let's see. Commissioner Surratt, do you want to start, please?
Sure. Welcome. Please tell us your plans for staffing the marina and specifically your plans to provide personal on-site management. And would you plan to have an assistant manager or some other supervisory type person available?
Yeah, I would probably have one other full-time person from Memorial Day to Labor Day, part-time help or seasonal help. I see myself being on site over 40, 50 plus hours a week. But I think myself and one other person will be able to handle a lot of the maintenance stuff. You know, boat rental wise and stuff, it may require a couple extra hands.
Right now you're managing a marina in Branson, correct?
Yes.
You live in Branson, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Would you intend to stay in Branson? I mean, you have...
I'm in Branson West,
Okay.
real close to Highway 13 that
Mhm.
runs down. My wife is a school nurse in Ozark, and my children attend school there in Ozark since she's employed there. And we're about halfway kind of between the two right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it would be.
yeah,
Go different directions.
yeah, for now, as she is employed there, we would stay there. Things pan out one direction or another, we could relocate for sake of convenience, yes.
Right. Thanks for your candor, because I was curious on how you were going to try to manage that. My husband and I both drove different
Yeah,
directions, so
different
I
directions,
understand. I've been there, done that. All right. Commissioner Dyer?
Can you give us some explanation of, and in detail, your commitment to the marina in terms of expansion and improvements?
Yes, sir. So I believe that the store itself and the gas dock area completely need to be gone. The floor is soft in spots. I think that at one time, those were possibly boat stalls that they've just covered up. They just are not very appealing to the eye. I think for in the future that a new structure needs to be brought in, a platform with the store and gas dock will be attached together, and then this structure can hinge off the existing. It's just, it needs to be upgraded very badly. And space, this would allow, the fuel dock now is just kind of square, and you just kind of park wherever you can. I think slips could be brought in, and with that gone, if that was gone, and it would have a separate roof, because right now it's just like there was a dock, and then they just boxed it in. It needs to be built with the purpose that it's made for. Right now, it's just kind of getting by however it is. There's really no storage. There's not an office down there. You know, if the slips are going to be paid down there and paperwork, needs to be some office space. So a new construction project would definitely allow for it to be upgraded as far as space goes.
So that would be a floating structure
Yeah, separate from the dock.
separate from.
So that could also, with that store gone, and we find out what's under this floor, there could be some slips there that could be rented as well for additional income.
What's under that floor, when that was built, that was a fishing well,
Gotcha.
and it was part of the building.
Yeah, interesting.
Commissioner Stamps is our resident historian. He was here in the 70s, so he helps us understand the...
I don't know if he drove any nails, but he helped create that place.
Yes. Yeah, that was ordered under my regime.
Dylan, to add on to that discussion of expansion and improvements, you know, we all know that food and beverage services are a critical part of the marina's presence on Table Rock Lake, and how would you propose growing those elements of the overall business?
Yeah, so I think with the new structure, what's nice about the way I've got it built, you could put an additional platform. It could be welded and attached on the side, where we would have a space that we could expand seating. And I had mentioned in the bid, small restaurant style, you know, basket meals, pizza, things like that, fountain drinks for possibly, you know, draft adult beverages, like that. And I think, and you know, now there isn't space for that. What space is down there is being used. So that would allow, it would have to do core approval, you know, and we may have to speak to the Corps about possibly adjusting the lease area, drawing the line back just a little bit, because on the map of the core lease area, it's getting tight there, but there's room to have this here.
Okay.
Now, ask Commissioner Stamps to do the next question, but before I do, I may have interrupted you when you were talking about staffing. What kind of staffing would you envision happening, being required for that facility? And I realize it's hard for you to know since, you know, you haven't been down there, but based on your experience with other marinas, what sort of staffing would you envision?
Probably 2 to 3 people per shift. A shift being, you know, 8 hours or so. Off season, you need, you know, myself and a member of the community that's looking for part-time work. You know, go open the store for 12 or so hours on the weekend and answer the phone and assist with customers coming in at that time. But you know, if we're going to expand, there's another job opportunity for dock construction, depending on how much of it we do in-house. But come season, you know, I'm not familiar with lake traffic on this end of the lake. I just know the other end of the lake. But a couple of people to check boats out. I would imagine 2 people to pump gas, probably maximum that you need during the day.
Thank you. Commissioner Stamps, do you want to take question number 3, please?
Water-related events hosted by the marina can have a positive effect on both the income of the marina and as well as bring Holiday Island more upfront to a lot of people exposure. Can you describe any season-long events that you would propose hosting, or what would your ideas for promoting the marina?
Fishing tournaments, they can be seasonal. Bass tournaments, I know that we're close to Beaver Lake. They could be species oriented. Poker runs are popular. Different, you know, get in touch with a couple different places down the lake, Eagle Rock, whatever.
I vaguely know how poker runs work with motorcycles. Do you do the same basically thing on the water?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, different runs and be a popular event. If we get in with a particular kind of boat to sell as a dealer, we could host a day on the lake where we provide food and have people come down, test drive boats. We could have some kind of a tournament, skiing or wakeboarding, things like that, try to get people in. We could create our own event that is specific to Holiday Island. Come, season, I'm not 100% familiar with like your guys' 4th of July or Labor Day, but there's a lot of opportunities there to host things that are specific to those to draw people onto the lake or involve the community. People always love fireworks and food, so.
That's true. You're right about that. A percentage of your gross sales would be paid to the district. It's critical that an accurate accounting be made and conveyed to the district. How would you propose handling this task with complete transparency? Would it be something where you would want to put all of the accounting systems yourself, or you can, depending on the district?
Point of sale system, everything's put in the register, and at any time, if it wants to be looked at, here's my receipts, here's my, it'll have to come to you guys, and it'll have to go off to the Corps of Engineers.
Yes.
So.
And our accountant is really concerned that she wants to be able to have some sort of documentation to back up what she's paying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the way, currently, there's a daily report filled out. I'm speaking for where I've come from. There's a daily report filled out that takes those numbers off of a receipt tape and has boat rentals broken down by boat, gas, food, ice, all of it broken down into a daily report, and at the end of the month, those are added up and sent off. So very open to any reporting, or or if there was some kind of a monthly audit, for lack of a term.
But you're really used to providing that sort of
Yes.
data.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Surratt?
Knowing the importance of good communication, how will you ensure the district manager and the board are fully informed of any issues, challenges, or opportunities?
I think there won't be any problem with me being vocal about things we need, or problems that arise from the marina. I've spoken with Danny a lot throughout this whole process and whatnot, and I like to think that we have a nice relationship going on here. So no, that won't be a problem at all.
And you know what you might like to know? That we actually had a pest contractor that came by who indicated that the marina that you manage, you do a very good job at.
Oh, thank
So
you.
consider that a compliment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dyer?
Dylan, tell us about your strategy, how you would manage ongoing maintenance, both general maintenance and emergency events, such as weather-related situations could happen in the middle of the night, whatever.
So, right now, we live on the KY3 weather app. It's very, knowing what's going on. We've made many trips to the marina, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. My commute now, that doesn't really change how I see that. I may not live here, but if my work is here, how I'm providing for my family is here. This is a priority. It'll be nice when we're established, if we do have part-time help to somewhat maybe ring the alarm, or take, as a representative of the marina. But no, it's nothing to be on site, major events and whatnot. Prepare for storms, make sure the docks are tight when you know something's coming through.
Have you actually replaced cables and things
Oh, yeah,
like that?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is going to be something, I presume, does the district own any kind of boat associated with the marina, or is that just the operator, a work boat at all?
Yeah, we don't own
Okay.
a boat. The fire department has a boat down there.
Gotcha.
But, no, we don't.
Yeah, I've, cables, setting anchors, all that stuff, yes, very familiar with that.
Maintaining a close and positive relationship with the Corps of Engineers is extremely beneficial and necessary, actually, beyond beneficial. Tell us how, and I know you're having to work from the way that you're used to doing it now, and I understand that, that's not a problem. Tell us how you work with the Corps now to make sure that y'all are working hand in glove.
Asking for permission is I think the largest thing with the Corps. I know through my current job, people in position at the Corps, so I'm very aware of the process of asking, reaching out to the Corps of Engineers. So there's really not a whole lot of things that should come as a surprise when you know how they operate. They do have some hiccups. They'll let things go for 10 or 15, maybe 20 years, and then all of a sudden it's a problem. But that's really not an issue. So I completely understand the role of the Corps. Big brother, kind of, for lack of a better term, but No, I understand that relationship completely, so. I'm sorry, I don't know if that answered your question,
Yeah, it
but
does, it
yeah.
does. And suppose you became aware of somebody that had a slip that was leased from us that was violating core rules. How would you handle that situation?
Well, first I'd have to talk to Mr. Presley. Depending on the severity of those rules, you know, the Corps of Engineers, you have to have your boat current registration. It has to be current. You can't stay overnight in a dock there. So it kind of, you know, I have to talk to Mr. Presley, maybe to y'all, the severity of it, depending on what it is. We can address it from there. I know that the district has the authority to terminate someone's lease. That's not my authority. So I'm happy to do it for you, but you know, it kind of fall on y'all. Need your guidance on what to do there.
Appreciate that.
Yes. Stamps?
Okay, the marina is currently at slip capacity, it's full. How would you handle Holiday Island residents specifically who feel that they are entitled to be preferred treatment or when it comes to slip rental?
What comes to my mind is that Holiday Island residents would get first dibs, I would say, on a slip coming available. If a slip comes open, I don't know off the top of my head how that would go with the Corps, if there's anything in there, since it is a public marina. But if there was an option for Holiday Island residents to have first preference, that's how I'd handle it at this current time.
That's a good answer.
And honestly,
I've got a horror story about that. But it has a good outcome.
It would be something that we'd want to investigate, because, I mean, I think the reason that question was posed is because Holiday Island residents assume they get property.
Yes.
They don't understand that it's a public.
Yeah.
You know, when they see people from Kansas City or Oklahoma or Texas getting slips while they still got a boat sitting in their driveway.
Oh, you know, another way to look at it though is that it's a public marina and there's a waiting list, and when your name's put on the waiting list, there's also a date written there. So,
And I somewhat assume that that's the way it's handled now, but I can't say that for sure.
I think so.
Yeah. The lease that you're bidding on is a 7-year lease. It's a long time.
yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I have to tell you too, that as a board, our responsibility is to the property owners of the district to make sure that we're getting the best financial benefit that we can, but we also want to make sure that we provide good customer service at the marina. You know, that almost becomes a win-win. If it's good customer service down there, it'll be good for your business and it'll be good in terms of our relationship with the community. But thinking about that long-term 7 years, what would you feel would be your greatest accomplishments at the end of that lease if you could get it done? If you're selected, what could you try to see happening toward the end of that 7 years?
At the end of the 7 years, if the store and the gas dock have been made, have been upgraded to not like, you know, current construction, I would say, and we're operating at max capacity as far as boat rentals that the area will allow, that business will allow, and we're serving food and beverages, I would be happy. That I don't want to offend anyone about the current state of the store and the fuel dock, but it needs it badly. And if you go to other places, I think you can see that, you know, that it needs it. It's gonna take a lot of money, it's gonna take time, but once it's done, it's gonna last a long time. And if it's constructed right, correctly, remodels may have to be done, but we're looking at very light remodels at that point. You know, we're talking about a whole new set of bones. So that's what's on my mind about.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about your proposal, about your experience, anything along that line?
The proposal that I had, you know, if I'm the operator, I'm the renter. And, you know, if you're renting a house and you go to your landlord and you say, hey, I'd like to paint this wall, well, you know, have at it. But if the house needs a new roof, hey, Mr. Landlord, the roof's leaking. So this proposal, there's that middle money, and I think that it helps. Y'all you're not gonna be losing anything out of it, but we can track that money. And you know, I was here at the last meeting about the rec center, and a lot of, you know, what to do and paying for this and whatnot. So I think that this proposal, we can kind of outline how this place is gonna get fixed up without having to rob Peter to pay Paul or anything like that, or questions from the population here how it's going to work. So.
And at the end of the day, Dylan, it is all about money.
Yes, sir.
And, both for you and for us. Without getting overly personal, though, do you feel comfortable that you would have the resources to put in place a rental fleet?
Yeah, I have. I've secured a little bit of private funding that's going to allow me to approach a bank or so and get that lined out.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because in my mind, that's a substantial investment,
Just
but
the
it's
boat.
also key to your
Absolutely.
financial stability. And-
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I think there are, 6 boats down there now?
Yeah,
That's
but,
it.
you know, it's more than just pontoon boats, you
Yeah.
know,
On the other side.
the kayaks
Kayaks,
and,
canoes.
Yeah.
I bet you the income off of a kayak as a percentage of the investment in the kayak is
Yeah.
sky high, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for driving down this
Yeah,
morning
absolutely.
again. And
If I may just say one other thing.
surely.
You know, I put some numbers in there, and a lot of it's percentages, because there wasn't a lot to go off of numbers-wise. And so, you know, I'm happy to do that reporting, and so so that it's kind of known what this place is processing as far as money goes. You know, the numbers that were given to me are coming off of 2021. And then when you look at 2021 and 2020, those were the 2 largest years on Table Rock Lake as far as rentals go. And come 2022, we're I don't want to say post-pandemic, but as far as tourism goes, we're back to 2019. So
Is that making a significant difference for you in Branson?
it was a good year. 2022 was a good year. And I wouldn't say that 2022, I don't think that saying down is the correct word for it, even though sales are lower than 2020, 2021. Like I said, down's not the correct, it's just those 2 years were so substantial that We're
Makes
back to
sense.
2019. There almost needs to be an asterisk with the
Yeah.
2020,
Yeah.
2021.
Almost anything we do here, there's an asterisk
Yeah,
by those
yeah.
years, yes.
So, in a lot of my proposals, percentage and whatnot, I would have liked to have given you a solid amount. I did write a solid amount in the money that I would be going to the upgrade, but I just want to let y'all know.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good observation. When I did the revenue projections for our
And it's
budget,
hard, yes.
I took out the
You left
COVID
out.
years
Yeah.
because it's an anomaly
Yeah.
it's gonna skew the math. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah, it's just kind of hard now, looking at this, what is this place going to generate? And then, looking at 2021, and you gotta think, well, what was it in 2019, or what, so.
Mhm.
I will say, I think this end of the lake, though, has a completely different culture.
Mhm.
Is that a good word?
Mhm.
I think so.
A different culture than the eastern end of the lake.
Gotcha.
And because of our proximity to Eureka Springs and some of the other things that are going on in this area, we might have a more stable environment. And I know I had a conversation with our clubhouse manager who runs all the golfing activities and yesterday, and he's already met his numbers for this year. So,
That's awesome.
I mean,
That's
that's
good.
Mhm.
good news for stability, I think, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Indeed.
Well, thank you again for
Yeah,
driving.
thank you all very much.
I really do, and,
Appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Dylan.
you, Dylan.
Is the meeting continuing?
I don't know. Madam Chair?
No.
Okay.
You mean as far
As
as
far,
making a
yeah.
decision?
We need to talk about that.
I guess, should I stay or should I go to work?
I think I would go to work.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all very much. I
And
appreciate
allow
it.
us to call you then.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you all.
Thank goodness. So you went fishing for a beard, huh? Yeah, more of a beard.
Here?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
little, yeah.
it's a little,
yeah.
yeah, I haven't trimmed it up since I got back.
All right. Let's give Bob a second to come back in.
What I was talking about was, I leased the marina out to Jerry and Bill Oaks. And I said, it's yours. You can have all the income. But what I want you to do is give priority to Holiday Island residents. And we built a new slip. And I said, it had some open slips on it. I said, I want 5 of those reserved for timeshare. Because we just started the timeshare. She sued me personally.
For logging them out.
Really?
Sued me personally. We get to court. Now, here's the
Mrs.
kicker.
Tyler.
You need to hear this one. We get to court. She sued me personally. We get to court. Her lawyer gets up there and says, for the record, Mrs. Oaks, would you please state your name, your address, and etc. She goes, it's a heart attack and dies.
No.
Wow.
That's a story. We cannot that story.
I get out, try to do CPR, and it was too late.
Well, case dismissed, I guess.
Judge Enfield, I'd been there before. Judge Enfield said, I just learned something today. You do not sue Larry Stamps. But she sure did.
All right, let's look back at this, and if we can, I would like for us to make a decision today, so that we get this off the table, and we have other things to deal with in the future. At time looking at these proposals, They both are saying that they would give 20%, they would keep 20%, give the 80% back to him. I said,
Is that what Dylan's ends up being?
yes, and that's why I
It is, in
asked for.
essence, yes.
Yes, I asked him, that's why I asked him for clarification, to be
Okay.
sure I was interpreting it. Yeah,
Okay.
he's they're both basically saying 20%. The difference is, and if you look at the percentage of sales, KP Doc Services says 3% of the sales would come to us, and Kluger says 5%, and Danny ran the numbers for us on sales, and it's really kind of almost a negligible amount. You know, it's like $5,000 difference when you look at a whole year.
Yeah.
It wasn't much.
Right.
So I don't think that's worth really us looking at in terms of making a great big difference. They approach the capital outlay differently. KP Doc Services says he'll kick in $40,000 a year for what we'll call legal improvements. And the way Kluver looked at it was he would kick in basically $13,000, but then ask us to commit $37,000 from the boat slip rentals, so that there would be a whole total amount of $50,000. It's a different way of approaching it than we've done in the past, and in some ways, I'm not sure it's not a bad idea, because then we always are putting in money to keep the marina up. Of course, when you do that, you know, it's you rob and pay Paul, that kind of thing. So, you know, they're looking at it a little bit different in terms of the capital improvement. However, KP Doc Services is obviously committed to put in more money, you know, like what, 3 times more money than Cleaver has. Expansion, I think they both told us the same thing. We know it, you know, if nothing else, just the eye appeal of it would make a big difference. They both are experienced. Both have a lot of expertise. They both know about cabling and all that sort of stuff. So, where do we go, folks?
I'll express an opinion.
That's what we want to hear.
For as close as they are, is it worth it to start over? That's,
Yeah. Mr. Dyer?
But we can't get the easy way either. I mean, if there are benefits from making a change, I think we need to value that.
But do you see benefits? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is a voice of the community. I've just besieged with too much negativity about the marina, specifically just Colin's style of not being there, not being responsive, that kind of thing. I personally like Colin. Sitting here on pins and needles, hoping to hear from him that he would spend more time there and make it his full-time priority. I still don't know that it is.
Can we not write that into the contract? I read the contract yesterday, and one of the things that I typically have seen in any contract I've ever looked at is some sort of clause to where you can get out of it if things are not done. That's why I kept pushing him on customer service and working with the district
Exactly.
office and all of that.
Yeah.
I would like to see if the attorney can come up with some sort of contract in here where if we don't feel like he's giving good customer service. You know, and I know you have to go through due process. You have to let him know that we're getting complaints and that these need to be remediated and all that sort of stuff, but we need a way to get out of it if it doesn't work to our benefit. Am I incorrect
Well,
on
I
that?
think an exit clause is pretty much standard language in most any contract.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought, and
it
I
is.
And it's
couldn't
usually
find
something
one.
like 90
I didn't
days
see
written
one either.
notice or something.
I read it as well,
Okay.
not recently,
Yeah.
when it first came out. And I didn't see anything in there. And everything changes in a 7-year period of time.
I know, it's
There can be a whole lot of change.
a
Well,
lot.
in Colin's case, it has changed. You know, he and his wife opened a very successful restaurant in Eureka Springs. And I'm sorry, folks, but I've been to the marina many times this summer
Only-
on my little jet ski.
I was gonna say probably more than the rest of us, actually.
Yeah, and I've never seen him there. Seen him there, other than the days that we went down as a group. I don't know that he has to be, but I think the people that pay our bills think he should be there the majority of the time. I don't know.
Larry, what's your thoughts on the two proposals, since they're so similar?
They are very, very similar. I'm kind of like everybody else. It's kind of like a coin toss between the two of them. Although Ellen lives in Branson.
Yeah.
Colin lives in Holiday Island. Colin may be in Eureka Springs, but that's closer than Branson. Weather events and docks they don't like each other. It's just a fact. And if Dylan had someone on hand that could take over immediately or anything like that, that would be good. But then again, visibility. People want to see the person that's running the marina. They don't want to have to second guess or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I asked him the question about, you know, where he lived, and because I am concerned that it's a pretty good drive from, you know, Branson West down here.
45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, you know, can hire supervisory level type people, but in general, you're hiring, you know, kids to pump gas or retirees that only want to work part-time. So presence is going to be important. I just think when we write the contract, we need to include a minimum number of hours that the lessor, I never can keep those straight, that the person be at the marina, and also an exit clause to get out if after presenting, you know, problem areas and giving an opportunity for remediation to take place. If that doesn't happen, then we can get out of it, because 7 years is a long time.
It is.
But then, you know, then I tend to think also, you know, he's got everything in place, Colin does at this point. Undoing it, I don't, what's involved in all of that? Do you have any thoughts on if he didn't get the contract, how does that happen?
I mean, the transition, if we make a change, there'll be some growing pains there for sure. I mean, it would be painful for a while. You know, he would want reimbursement for the restroom. He told us that. And then he's got, you know, the rental fleet there that he may or may not want to sell to a new operator. Of course, that would be between them to decide. And then another hurdle would be the software, the point of sale, and, you know, converting that over to a new point of sale software, and, which,
Did I push that enough? Because I know y'all wanted to,
you did, and thank you. Yeah, if we had those printouts, that
Yeah,
would
knowing
be
there's a report is, it kind of solves the problem.
yeah.
correct. What we've gotten, you know, to date has been just a number.
Yeah, and maybe that he could even, and that electronically, so you can share it with.
I think we deserve a document, you know, with
Yeah.
itemized
Absolutely.
So
detail.
does, so does Jennifer.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to sound negative towards Colin, but he's been in place for 8 years. We know what we got out of it. And the lackadaisical, do enough to get by.
Appearance-wise, yes, his being here.
Yeah.
I don't think you can fault him for what he's done on the docks, the improvements he's made.
What somebody else would have done, though.
No, you don't. Is it better the devil you know than the devil you don't?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the issue. You know.
Just for the record, and, you know, it's not my place to, you know, to have a vote in this or sway the board, but I'll just say that I'm totally comfortable working with either one of those guys.
Thanks.
And I do have confidence that either one of them could do the job.
I agree.
And I agree, and there's just, the proposals are so extraordinarily similar that,
I have a question. Have these, was a copy of this contract provided to the bidders?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So if we make a change to the contract,
they're gonna have to agree to it.
so what do? You say, KP, we are willing to award this to you, but,
And if he
And
doesn't
then-
agree, then we can rebid. We have till December. We could rebid this all over again. Or we could then go to the other guy and say, here, we'll take your contract, except we want you to commit that you will be here at least 40 hours a week. And understand that if we feel like that you're not providing the type of service that we want our patrons to have, then unless that's remediated, we have the ability to consider the contract null and void.
Boy,
They can say yes or no.
Yeah. But you're kind of over a barrel anyway. I mean, then what do you do? I mean, you can't foresee that stuff's going to happen.
I would like to say, just for the record, in case anybody listens to this, that there were 2 additional proposals submitted, one by Dustin Kelly and one by, what's Mr. Martin's first name? Steve Martin,
Steve, yeah.
not to be confused with the Steve Martin. And in my mind, the reason they weren't brought to this interview process was their proposals were, in my mind, lacking completely any experience with marinas. The numbers, the numbers just weren't there to warrant us. And I'm sure they're very good people, and I'm not saying they couldn't do a good job. It's just, there wasn't anything on paper to warrant us taking another look, so that's.
And really, Phyllis, I really think that whoever we go to and say, we're willing to accept your proposal with these 2 conditions, I think they'll be agreeable. They have to know that we expect them to be there.
Well, and they've heard,
And they heard that
Yeah.
now, and I think really that's ability to back out of a contract is kind of standard boilerplate in most instances, so am I wrong?
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please tell me when I'm wrong. I have been known to be wrong, folks.
Well, and the
At
very
one time,
fact,
you were really right, and you thought you were wrong.
The very fact that Colin recognized that the previous contract wasn't protecting us enough makes a difference.
I
And
was
so
really
we,
surprised he said that.
so we
Larry,
can,
you weren't here
give us an
during
opportunity.
that time, but Colin actually said that the previous contract actually benefited him more than it did the district, he thought. And so he expected that there would be changes in the contract. And we all kind of went, oh, really?
Yeah, because none of us were involved.
Yeah. All right, folks. We don't want to put this off
No, we
any
have
longer.
to
We
do
got
something.
other things that we got to take care of. What are we going to do? Someone needs to make a motion. Or at least more discussion.
I feel like adding the parameters to the contract that you spoke about, and my vote would be to leave it with Kate.
Is that a motion?
No, that's an opinion. Do you want to, I mean, I guess that's the only way to do it, isn't it? Vote it up or down.
Yeah, we've got to vote it up or down.
Okay.
Larry, what's your opinion?
KP Dock Services invested in the rental boats and all that inventory that he's got there. And I think in his proposal, he's talking about expanding that even. A little part of it that I read. I think, and also I think possibly he has people that he knows that can help him on that dock because of prior employment, this kind of stuff. Whereas with Dylan, he's coming from afar.
Everything's new.
And everything's new. He knows no one. He doesn't have the audience or whatever you want to say, or the knowledge of the depth of employees or who he can trust or anything. So I think maybe KP Docs has an advantage there.
Sir?
I'll go with the majority, but I think we need.
There are issues.
I think we need to have some strong words. If we were to go with KP today, we need to have some strong words with Colin that he needs to make that a priority over his other business operations. So.
Okay. And I appreciate that, because I would like for this to be a unanimous vote if we can achieve that. I also think it will smooth the transition. He's shown a commitment to the marina in the fact that he has put the rental boats in, he has put the stock in, he's aware of what the customers want, he's put the restrooms and improved he's shown a commitment to the marina. And actually, his capital improvement number is better than the other fellow.
Well, and his increase in his payback to the slips, increasing his.
That's true.
From 5/8 to 80%,
Correct.
shows a willingness is a good offering.
You're exactly right. So, I think Larry has a really good point for the new guy to come in, even though he's got a lot of experience. He doesn't have experience in this area. He doesn't know this area, he doesn't know Holiday Island. He's got 45-minute drive every day. I would prefer to leave it at KP Dock Services, assuming that we put those two things, a minimum number of hours that the operator will be there, and what kind of clause would you call that?
Termination
A
clause.
termination clause.
And Danny, I would leave it up to you to create that. You weren't here, but we talked about the issue of communication, and Colin can tend to be a bit aloof.
Yeah.
And maybe Danny could have, they meet for half an hour once a week or something like that, just to bond the communication
Yeah.
and
Because we tried to set the groundwork for you to make it a little, so that he knows that we're not necessarily happy about that. And I would like to see him come in, before the major season starts, and give us a little 15 minutes on what he has planned. Then maybe toward the end of the season and a little, I don't know that we necessarily need him every month, but I think he ought to report. And it wouldn't be bad. Holiday Island happenings, just like Tyler done.
I was thinking,
It's
that's just
marketing,
what I was
folks,
going to
it's
say.
marketing.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing is Colin works hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce as far as the Big Bass Tournament. Also, the trail tournaments that they have every weekend or whatever it is, the bass fishermen. He is very familiar with those things and has worked with everybody hand in hand with those as well.
Yes. And he told us, Larry, that he was looking at trying to add some water sports tournaments, like wakeboards and things like that, and kids fishing, and even in the wintertime, walleye tournament, that kind of thing. So he's been thinking about stuff to generate more activity down there. And of course, the more activity that he creates, that's more he's going to sell, and so here again, it's a win-win.
It
All right,
is.
I think we're in agreement. Can somebody put this in the form of a motion?
I move that we award the marina contract to KB Dock Services.
Continue on.
Pending his approval of changes to the contract.
Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Commissioner Stamps is seconded. Would you poll, since this is a 7-year contract,
Yep.
would you poll the board?
Yes, Chairwoman Childers,
Yes, I agree.
Vice Chair Dyer,
yes.
Secretary Surratt, yes. Commissioner Stamps,
Yes.
A motion has been made and passed that we will award the contract for management and operations of the Holiday Island Marina to KP Dock Services, pending KP Dock Services agreement to 2 additions to the contract, and following his proposal. Is that correct?
yes.
All right.
Sounds good.
We have no new business. Do we have commissioner comments?
Sorry,
Schedules?
I'm sorry I was late getting here, but
No, not.
double
Agenda
commitments.
scheduling, we have a meeting on Monday.
Mhm.
Right now, not much on the agenda, but we do have a meeting, our regular September meeting on Monday. And then we have a meeting on October the 3rd, which has to do with budgeting. And would you like to give us a little overview on how you, at that point in time, want to handle that?
Sure. We have laid out a schedule for next week, all day Thursday and all day Friday. Our accountant will be here, and we will be meeting here in this room with each of the department heads, and we'll be vetting through their budgets line by line for 2023. Each department head has about 2 hours, for us to work through. And as we're doing that, our accountant will be working in the software in Excel and plugging in those numbers. And so we should be able to have you a draft of the budget by the time that we meet on October 3rd.
Wow. Mr. Stamps?
The audit. I was contacted by the auditor this past week, this week. And I had about a 2-hour conversation with him, and it's typical. Do you know of anything that's been out of the ordinary here or there, or book-wise, or whatever, in this kind of stuff? And I answered all his questions for the audit. But he and I had a good conversation. all the things that I would probably ask him had I got to meet with him face to face, he answered. I went over some of the things that I was concerned about, and he was concerned about the same ones, primarily delinquencies and et cetera. But anyway, when is that going to be presented to the board? Do you know? I failed to ask him that.
There's one final thing that they're waiting on, and that is a statement from the bank, from Cornerstone Bank, who holds our accounts. The bank has a form that somehow it got lost in the shuffle, so I hand-delivered it to the bank on Wednesday. And they have to go on each account and state what the balance is and some other information. And then the manager of the bank has to sign off on that. And I should get that back today. That's, I think, the last thing they're waiting on. And then hopefully we can get a presentation from the auditors by, you know, I don't know. I'd hate to misspeak on the timeline, but.
I failed to ask him that when he thought he might be able to present it to the board.
Yeah.
I should
Thank you
get
for
that
sharing that with us.
bank report today.
Yeah, it's October, you'd think we'd get last year's on it soon, wouldn't you?
Mhm.
All right, so,
We can make a decision about it in 24.
there you go. All right, so we will be back here on Monday. I thank you for the time today. I think it went well. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make such a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Commissioner Stamps has made a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Surratt has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a quick question about that October 3rd, is that open to the public?
It's a